Wow. Who says that poetry can't fill a room? Oh my gosh. This is amazing. Welcome everybody to Peter White Public Library. My name's Marty Acketts. I'm the Adult Programming Coordinator for the library. Thank you. And it's my extreme pleasure to welcome you all here for Lynn's reading. I'm just going to make you aware of a couple other things that are upcoming here. Tomorrow night, since you all are poetry lovers, tomorrow night is our monthly meeting of the Marquette Poet Circle. So if you wanted to show up at 6:30, we do a workshop at 6:30, and then at 7:10, we do an open mic. So anybody is welcome to show up and read some poetry, tell some stories, sing a song. I don't care, just show up. And that's tomorrow night starting at 6:30. On Friday, we have our Global Cinema Matinee, and that's going to be Louis Malle's Au revoir les enfants. If you have not seen that movie, it's beautiful. It's a movie about two young boys in World War II Paris. One is Jewish and one is not, and their friendship that they form. So that is going to be on Friday at 12 noon here in the community room. Yes, community room. And then next week we have our Middle-earth Madness, our celebration of J.R.R. Tolkien. It's the 50th anniversary of his passing this month, so we're doing all kinds of events related to Tolkien. And on Monday night, starting at 6:30 here in the upstairs in the Shiras room, we're going to be showing the biopic Tolkien. So lots of great stuff coming up. They're all on this flyer back there. But you're not here to hear all that. You're here to hear this lovely, lovely person in the front row give a wonderful poetry reading. So let me tell you a little bit about Lynn, although I'm guessing that most of you know who she is. But Lynn came to NMU via Alabama, Illinois, New York. You were all over the place for a while, Lynn. She currently is a professor here at Northern Michigan University in the English department. She has many books back there for sale. She has several collections, including Corporal Works, Framed in Silence, and she's also the creative writing editor of The Other Journal as well. So, and all I can tell you about Lynn is that she's a wonderful poet, a wonderful friend, very supportive of everybody, all of her students. You know what? It's just a testament to how much people love her that this whole room is full. So please give a big round of applause to Lynn Domina.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's an exciting night for me, of course, but it's extra exciting to see so many people from so many areas of my life here in the same room at the same time. So thank you, Marty, for hosting this and doing really all of the legwork. I've known Marty practically since we moved to Marquette, and it was so exciting to see him get this job as Director of Adult Programming here at the wonderful Peter White Library. I've lived, as Marty said, all over the place, and I've never known a public library that is so engaged with the community. So that alone makes it worth living in Marquette, right? So this book, Inland Sea, has a lot of Marquette in it, a lot of Lake Superior in it. I grew up in Lower Michigan. I was very accustomed to being around lots of water. Whenever I wanted, I could find a lake, and then I moved other places, and they don't have that. And I got so homesick for water. And at one point, when I was starting to think, I think it's time for whatever's next in my professional life, and I was simultaneously thinking, maybe we ought to get a cabin on a lake. And then I got this job. And I thought, we got our lake. All right. So the first poem I'm going to read is called No Dinosaur Ever Saw Superior. I checked out this book, Geology of the Lake Superior Region. to learn how many millions of years ago Superior began draining into Huron and why all that iron and copper compressed itself into these peninsulas. But it says, get this, that Superior became Superior somewhere about 7,500 years ago. What surprises me most is that I'm not disappointed. Of course, a lot of other things, glaciers heading north, marine animals dying, bedrock eroding, happened beforehand. But it's young as bodies of water go. It'll be around a long while yet. I think as if that means I'll be around a long time too. I know a foolish thought when I have one, but I'm in love with its brutal storms, its crushed ice banks, its 3 quadrillion gallons of frigid water. 15 zeros, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion gallons. And I love every molecule in every one of them. The book says Paleo-Indians witnessed ice recede, leaving liquid water there, here, hundreds of feet deep. Though, of course, it wouldn't have been like watching a wild rose bush blossom, swollen pink buds one day, arced petals the next. Or even like a birch tree's slow release of seed, the seed's germination, the saplings thickening through years. Still, I have to say I'm jealous. Who wouldn't want to see aquamarine bloom across a landscape until nothing but fresh water sheared between your footprints and the horizon? The largest freshwater lake in the world, emerging right where you once flung projectiles, not exactly arrows, apparently, despite our penchant for calling every marked stone we find an arrow, but projectiles at mastodons and moose, killing enough of them. The book says people found drift copper and wore it ornamentally as I do. But it doesn't say how much smaller a Paleo-Indian's foot was than my own, or if their girls preferred warmer inland lakes, or if, watching the lake's surface, rough or perilous or flat, a woman's breath ever slowed like mine. So now I just can't imagine not living 4 blocks from that lake, right? But it's not all pleasure, right? There's a little bit of caution. And so the book opens with a poem called Shoreline, which is divided into several very short parts. And so I'll just pause between a little bit between each section. Shoreline. My favorite days, I cannot identify blue that is water, blue that is sky, blue that is horizon. I crave this lake's chill, pain thrilling my legs, back, wrists, those minutes I remain fully immersed. You can see one small cave hollowed by erosion, only if you've left the path, understanding that if you step even farther, you will stumble or the overhang will collapse. Either way, you'll die. 3 chunks of driftwood have landed together where sand meets stone, broken shells beside them reflecting green sea glass. I've been wanting to create more words to name blue. My best stones turn out to be slag, pocked by air bubbles that burst when bits of ore tumbled into frigid water. Late spring, disks of ice swirl within a half-moon cove. Some truth resides in storm-driven waves, but I can't discern completely what it is. Winter afternoons, we climb ice banks so far out, we forget which world is safe, which dangerous. So a few years ago, I was very privileged to participate in a faculty exchange program with a university in Weihai, China. Shandong University is right on the eastern shore of China, right across from Seoul, Korea. And it was really fun. I learned a total of 3 words in Chinese. Ni hao, which means hello, xie, which means thank you, right? 2 very important words. And then baola, which means I'm full, because they were always feeding me. But fortunately for me, there was a street near the apartment where I stayed that had all these restaurants in it. I just called it Restaurant Street. And one of them was like a cafeteria style. So I went there for lunch every single day because I could just go along the line and point, right? I want this, right? So this next poem I'll read is set there. It's called First Breakfast in Weihai. I haven't yet learned how to say hello, ni hao, or even thank you, xie. So I point to a dish of green sprouts with rice noodle threads, a bamboo basket of dumplings, hoping they are filled with shrimp or pork. I choose a square pastry stuffed with what I expect to be spiced cabbage, but bite into sweetness. Like a donut, I realize, delighted to recognize syrupy fruit. And then, as I glance toward the avenue, a man hauls 3 hard-shell suitcases from his taxi and 1 plastic bag squared with 4 flat boxes. Krispy Kreme, the first English words I've seen today. He lifts the bag delicately, so pleased that he has brought his family such an exotic sweet. So, when I lived in the Catskill region of New York, some of the landscape was fairly similar, and some of the woodland creatures were fairly similar. And there was an experience. We lived at the end of this road that went out of the village, right across from the headwaters of the Delaware River. And there was a black bear on our road for a while. And everybody saw it, except me. So I was really irritated. So I wrote the following poem. It's called I've Heard Stories. My friend says everyone has a bear story, even if it's not about a bear, and that your story provides an index to your personality. At first I thought she meant your story reveals your neuroses, the origins of those fears you wish you could conceal. My conviction, for instance, that every snake dreams itself a constrictor, longs to squeeze the breath from my lungs. Even the green tree snake, thin as twine, freshly hatched garters squirming from their nest. Even the venomous black mamba, which could kill me without constriction in seconds. But when she says personality, I realize she means personality. I've never seen a bear outside a zoo or taxidermists. I've heard stories others tell, The bear ambling across Route 28, detaining the 6:30 bus, or the one ducking behind Catskill Hall as two students dumped their garbage roommates from the city who'd already fled wild turkeys and deer. In the best story I know, a black bear broke into an ice cream truck 3 nights running. My neighbors said he liked butterscotch topping most. It was their truck, their driveway, just 100 yards north of mine, but I never saw him dip his paw into peanut butter or caramel, bang open the freezer drawer, lurch dizzily outside across the cornfield toward Scotch Mountain. I've no bear story of my own, and so you, please, tell me yours. So, if you think poetry makes nothing happen, I wrote that poem and then I did see a bear. Right? He was right outside he's closer to me than you guys. But fortunately, there was a wall in between us. I was inside and he or she was outside. So I believe that if I want something to happen, I need to write a poem about it, and it will. So this next poem you will hear reveals the desire I have most living in Marquette. It's called White Deer. Not the white of ice-blue glaciers calving, nor the white of an old man's beard flecked with gray and 1 or 2 black hairs, nor the hazy white we attribute to spirits, even those of us who deny feeling haunted. Nothing about these deer is translucent, these deer who are not the white of dandelion fluff or canine or human teeth, nor the white of little moons anchoring your fingernails. Whiter than the white of a cumulus cloud reflecting noon sun, if a cloud could be solid, firm, a haunch moving under its own volition. Their coats not fur but pelt, heavy, tight, certain, so bright they glow as if lit from within. I have never seen a white deer, just photographs and one quiet video. Though I drive around the island, neighborhoods where they are said to eat rhododendrons and dogwood just like their tan cousins, through wooded subdivisions looking. You are probably right when you say a single vision, an ordinary animal, its increasingly common genetic variation will change nothing about my life. That a vision's sole meaning is meaning I've created. And you're probably right that whatever I'm seeking already lies within. But isn't it just possible that a white flash leaping over fallen oaks will illuminate the one shadow I can't see past today? So it's been, I don't know when I wrote that poem, at least 2 or 3 years ago, but I have faith. The next poem is kind of about Marquette, a little bit of Marquette history. As you may know, there have been several fires in Marquette, some big ones, and there was a big one in 1868. And practically the whole downtown area, south side, burned. At that time, what we call Baraga Street was called Superior Street, which is referred to here. But the fire was put out before it really reached much of a residential area, and so nobody died, right? Lots was burned, but nobody died. And so this poem, there's a little bit of poetic license. But you'll recognize some names. If you think, I didn't know that, it's probably because I made it up. But that said, I didn't lie. There's nothing in here that I know not to be true, okay? It's called Burned. 3 wooden shipping docks. Wooden shops along Front Street and Main Street and Superior Street. Every wooden building between 4th Street and the lake. David Scoville's hardware store. Every hammer and handsaw, bags of licorice he kept for children, all his penny nails. One girl's hope chest lit up like a fiery crown, its elaborate trick lock smoldered to ash. Her doilies, embroidered pillowcases, 3 shades of green thread marking leaves and stems, 1 appliqued quilt, her darning needles. Mr. McGilligan's corpse inside its casket. First National Bank, though not its cash, for Peter White filled canvas bags with bills, coins, a sheaf of records, threw it all onto a skiff and ordered his assistant to row past the shipping lane, to return only after every glowing ember collapsed into ash. Horse manure left in the streets or shoveled under wooden sidewalks. 500 tons of pig iron, if pig iron can be said to burn. Pig iron, but no pigs or cattle or horses, for every living thing survived. Mr. McGilligan's casket steadied on a dock, waiting to be loaded onto the next boat to Ontario. Milton's poems, Calvin's sermons, that bestseller Uncle Tom's Cabin, all 1,500 books inside the city library and the library. Philo Everett's furniture hauled out to 3rd Street for safety. Sparks showered his oak hutch anyway, his 4 cane chairs, his horsehair sofa. 1 altar, wainscoting, a few dozen pews. First Presbyterian Church delayed its first service until Christmas. Peter White, David Scoville, and Philo Everett worshipped elsewhere. The newspaper office, every report of scandal, marriage, church suppers, eminent visitors. The small New Testament inside Mr. McGilligan's pocket. What didn't burn? A butcher shop, a South Side hardware store, every resident south of Superior Street, and all of the residents. Each person lived to describe the longest dock, hundreds of feet out into the water, bejeweled with flame. How astonishing it was, how terrifying, how beautiful. That's why we have no wooden buildings in downtown Marquette anymore. They said, you got to build with stone and brick. So some of you know my colleague Austin Hummel teaches a lot of variety of English courses, including a lot of mythology. And Austin and I have had some frequent debates about the value of certain pieces of literature. And he says the Iliad is the book to read, and I say it's the Odyssey. So, this poem, the beginning of this poem is inspired by that conversation I had with Austin. And then, he's the you, right, that the poem is addressing. But I have to confess, since some of you actually know him, that the rest, after about line 3, he is not guilty, okay? It's called After Learning to Tie a Boat with a Rolling Hitch. That was the day we argued, or debated, or discussed which was better. The Iliad, you said, battle after battle after battle. One big bloody mess, I said. But you liked Achilles and his love for, who was it, Hector? No, Patroclus. The Odyssey, I said. Clever Odysseus, calling himself nobody, remembered all these millennia as if any warrior would claim he's nobody, as strained by society's getting and spending as Emily Dickinson, who wasn't nobody either, but had a mind to be. Odysseus, strapping his men to the warm, gurgling bellies of sheep, blinding the Cyclops, a creature my high school friend confused by way of ogre, I kid you not, with orgy. And who doesn't envy Circe, turning those men into pigs, revealing in their physical form their inner natures? And so you asked me what Circe would turn me into, what outward form my inner nature would take. I thought for a moment until I saw it, Aeolus's bag of wind, tactile, if not exactly visible. Don't scold me for deflecting your question. Oh, western wind, soft as spring clover, a gust, a breeze, or wild as the wine-dark sea. So I'm going to read the title poem called Inland Sea. It's in the form of a villanelle, which you will hear. There's a lot of repetition. And if you're thinking, oh, she's said that before, it's because the form requires me to. Okay, it's kind of, it's a little, it's another cautionary tale about inland seas. Okay, inland sea. No one has drowned in Superior since October. Crisp water nudges its long shore. An inland sea, we say, in my cold country's cold interior. Since October, every death wearies me wearier. Jagged, cutting, years from safely smooth sea glass washed ashore. No one has drowned in Superior who didn't fight to live. Who'd have thought me the worrier? Yet I sense this one's daring, that one's bravado, my fear a feeble oar against an inland sea. We say, in my cold country's cold interior, fate is as good as grace, and no one's luck is linear. We talk of storms, shipwrecks, copper, legends, iron ore. No one has drowned in Superior without knowing force, power, surrender. Their soul's soft-spoken courier floats upward, singing, invisible, her open arms offering one spirit more to an inland sea, we say, in my cold country's cold interior. Nature's account marks each element equal, nothing inferior, nothing exceptional, save our false folklore. No one has drowned in Superior, an inland sea, my cold country's cold interior. So there are a couple of poems in the collection that respond to current events in a more overtly political way. So I'm going to read one of those, and then I'll return to some more lighthearted material. So this one is called Chant to Lift Up the Soul of George Floyd, the man who was murdered in Minneapolis by the police a few years ago. If you ever have a chance, if you're in Minneapolis and you have a chance to drive by the George Floyd Square there, the intersection, it's very moving. Chant to lift up the soul of George Floyd. And the other thing I'll say is there are lots of allusions here to various pieces of African American literature and history. So if there's something a little obscure, that's what it is. Smoke hovers above the old bank building, the shoe store clearing away its sidewalk sale, the Indian restaurant, the Thai restaurant, the Mexican restaurant, which yesterday served 140 orders of chicken mole. Smoke sinks into the skinny passageway between a new brewery and condemned diner, beneath 2 floors of apartments. Smoke billows into attics, wraps itself around photographs, scrapbooks, wedding dresses, out through vents, out through the chink in the wall of Harriet Jacobs' hiding place. Smoke coats the fire escape, every rickety step, both rusted railings, seeps inside like haze on a TV screen, broadcasting Minneapolis set afire, then Atlanta, L.A. We can't tell now whether the camera films the char of arson or the sting of tear gas. Smoke from smoldering bricks, weight-bearing beams, red bicycle frames. Smoke from heaps of worn tires that resist ignition. Smoke from limbs of oak and chestnut, strong enough for a rope and the weight it holds. Smoke from the limbs of young men. Smoke that conjures words like loot, riot, justifiable homicide. Smoke from penal codes, section 2058, 2059. Smoke from vats of bacon grease, from shoelaces, from leather belts and cotton shirts. Smoke from a lemon cake fresh from the oven, swirling like condensation above ice cream, blanketing chocolate kisses, Twizzlers, Skittles. Smoke from caps stitched with an acronym, a president's slogan, T-shirts stamped BLM in 42-point sans serif font. Smoke from initials monogrammed on French cuffs. Smoke from Frederick Douglass's first pair of long pants. Smoke curling behind a reporter who shouts into his mic into the TV. Smoke from King's royal reference, Malcolm X's abandoned surname. Smoke from names common as Brown, unusual as Plessy. Smoke coats a stray cat's orange fur, the veined ears of a shepherd mix, every human being's skin, turning forearms, the backs of hands, gray. Smoke stinging our throats, filling our lungs. Smoke, we can't breathe, we can't breathe. One night's or 1 week's residue, never enough to assuage any man's pain. Cheek scraping pavement, a knee on a neck. I never used to include political references in my poems much, and I thought I didn't really have a lot to say that other people couldn't say, but then I realized we all have something to say, right? So now, many of you are or have been in some sort of relationship where the other person in the relationship hands you a jar and says, open, right? Open. And it occurred to me at one point that not historically, maybe our great-great-grandparents didn't have this problem because they did not have mason jars. They just used other things to cover their beverage containers and that sort of thing. And so I kind of thought, I wonder how that all happened. How did that get created? So this poem is inspired by just a little encounter. Honey, will you open this? Right? After reading John S. Willett's book of American trivia. Not every day, but most days, my wife asks me to open a jar, her arthritic hand fleeting across mine. Pasta sauce, raspberry jam, chunky salsa, farmhouse chutney. I ask her if she knows people once used wax to seal glass bottles. Behind our conversation, I hear fruit jars clanking against plates and cutlery. I hear wheels rutting the road from my ancestors' wagons as they jostle through New England, Pennsylvania, across Ohio, Indiana. I hear crows object to homesteaders, chipmunks scutter through leaves, a nearly silent lizard scratch one leg before it catches hold of a shaded axle. One of the women shouts, "Stop, just stop," in northeastern Nebraska. So they stop, generations of them plowing fields, husking corn. I hear my father ask my mother how many tomatoes she will can this year, how many beans she will freeze. Steam blurs the kitchen. Tomato peelings drop into the sink. Plump flesh, grained like muscle, slides into quart jars, one pink globe slumped against another, heaped to the threaded glass mouths. John Landis Mason's favorite invention. He died broke, like most people who change our lives for the better. Someone should have told him, "Renew your patent." And keep your lizard farm secret. All those captive reptiles making him criminal. His daughter said stop, but he wouldn't hear. He appreciated their colorful skin, the small gecko's toes, rounded as buds. Their names pleased him: chameleon, iguana, skink, and please me too. They ate so little, crickets or dandelion greens, and drank even less. When the sheriff ambled into his yard and unfolded the warrant, Mason was watching a wood lizard tongue mist from the underside of chicory. He wouldn't have predicted children would twist caps on his jars after they'd captured lightning bugs, pollywogs, garter snakes, so many creatures inadvertently killed. But last night, when I opened a bottle of ginger ale, its fizz misted my hands, sweetening the entire kitchen. I wondered which of my relatives first felt carbonation in their mouths or took ice cubes for granted. I'd never thought enough about sealed jars, their threaded mouths, to praise the thread's creator who made it possible for me to perform this small, delightful favor. So I'm going to read two more poems. One was in response to a prompt that a writing friend had sent me, and the prompt had a number of requirements. You had to mention all these different things, so you'll see some weird things show up. But you had to choose a body part to praise, right? And I'm really shy, so I had to select a body part I was willing to read about in public. So it's called Eye to Eye. Give me that sidelong look. Give me that crinkled eye, curved as an almond, dark as vanilla. Oh, surrender your glance, your gaze, your chestnut eye, sweet as kiwi, round as coconut. Eye like agate, like geode a girl breaks open, clapping for what hides inside. Eye of newt dropped into a bubbling potion, inflicting mischief or love's revenge. Eye of giant squid, whose courting habits are discourteous. Eye of Brookesia micra, who inhabits an uninhabited island. Her mating rituals never seen by a naked human eye. I call you apple of my eye, and so can call you Honeycrisp, ambrosia, my delicious. Give me your majestic eye, your your exceptional eye, your superlunary eye. Give me your sumptuous eye, your transcendent eye. Emerson advised he would become a transparent eyeball, but I prefer your opaque amber iris, your perfect pupil. So long as we can breathe or eyes can see, drink to me only. Raise a toast with demi-tasse cups, crystal tumblers, cut glass goblets. Lift your magnums, your Jeroboams, your Nebuchadnezzars. Be my witness, I that watches me tumble clumsily as Jack or Jill fall greatly off a wall, I that puts me back together again. Okay, so the last poem I'm going to read is the poem that really puts my cards on the table about where I intend to end up. Okay, it has an epigraph, and the epigraph says, "A streak of light visible upon a breeze-wrinkled surface of water is called the road to happiness." And the poem is called The Road to Happiness. Cresting the hill west of Seymour, past shiny signs proposing chicken sandwiches, breakfast all day, larger coffee, biscuits, new flavors, and past 2 Chinese buffets rumored to be closing forever, and past the auto parts store, insurance agency, and cheap hair salon where young women wax my eyebrows, and always past a snowplow spitting sand, and the car wash that opens only after temperatures rise above 20, and past the school bus carrying cheerleaders to the township and the pickup stacked with storm windows, I look up to see again the lake, stretching, I know, to another country. And I take its blue measure, and I take in its wind-brushed surface, its narrow breakwater crusted with ice, clouds dripping to a near horizon, and I know I don't want to live forever, but I want to live here forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm sure that Lynn would be happy to sign any books back there if you haven't picked up one, and this reading hasn't told you that you need to have one. I don't know what's wrong with you. So please stop back, have a chat with Lynn, and purchase one of her books because it really is a beautiful collection. Thank you all for coming tonight, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon.